Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be rating all the Mimic chapters from easiest to hardest. This list will not contain boss fights and smaller events like the Christmas trials. This is also just my opinion too, so you guys could have a complete different list to me. Let me know what your list is in the comment section down below, and without further ado, here we go. Alright, so starting off my list at number 1 will be Book 1, Chapter 1. I think this is by far the easiest chapter, and I think this is one I think everyone will agree with me on. There's not as many parts, and it has very easy mechanics because it was the very first chapter of the Mimic. Some of the monsters in the game too I find to be some of the easiest as well, with some of the easiest mechanics. This chapter also always felt like a very easy speedrun chapter, with people speedrunning this under 10 minutes, which is almost impossible for almost every other chapter on this list as well, which means it was very short as well. And some of the monsters for like 2 parts were very easy, like Biwaki and Shizu. I feel very confident that Book 1, Chapter 1 is the easiest chapter in the Mimic. Alright, so the next easiest chapter in the Mimic will be Chapter 3. Now, I debated putting Chapter 2 in front of this chapter, but after the revamp, Chapter 3 got a lot more easier. The parts just became a lot more fun and a lot more easier to get used to, and Chapter 2 also felt like it got a lot harder, so I'm going to put Chapter 3 in the second easiest chapter in the Mimic. It had a few easy parts in it, like extremely easy parts like the hand part, and they made a lot of the other parts very, very easy. For example, with the revamp, the centipede got a lot faster, which did seem to make it a lot more difficult. However, the pillars got a lot more easier, where you could spam E until you got it right. The centipede also takes corners a lot slower, which does make it a lot easier. Now, coming in at my number 3 spot, no surprise, Book 1, Chapter 2. This just felt like a little bit more difficult. I put this a little higher than Chapter 3 just because Shaku got a lot more difficult, and Sama feels a lot more difficult. The maze feels a little bit more complex. It feels like a complete new different maze that we had to memorize, and some of the parts beforehand were a lot more difficult too. The first bit I still find extremely easy, however the last bit is a lot more difficult I find in Chapter 3. Alright, coming in at number 4 is the Witch Trials. I absolutely love the Witch Trials, but I also think it's perfect to put it right in the middle. This was the very first chapter, or game mode, that we actually had to interfere with the monsters. Meaning we actually had to take something from the monsters, going up to them for once instead of running away. For newer players, this would be a major challenge because the natural instinct for newer players is to run away from the monsters instead of going right up to them. And the 4 beasts were not the only monsters that you had to do this. You also had to do this as Photo Mote in the very last part as well, was taking the spirits away from them. Not only that, the second part just made it a little bit harder. Alright, now coming in at number 5 is the Halloween Trials, the old one. This was a major struggle back in the day just because of how fast the monsters were. This was Tayo and the first monster that we encounter. These 2 monsters could kill you within a blink of an eye, and some of the parts in the old Halloween Trials were almost impossible to do. I'm talking about the Tayo part. Figuring these parts out at launch was a real challenge because we never experienced anything where we had to actually time the candles. And it was the first time where being in a group of multiple people could have actually screwed you up even more if not everyone knew what they were doing. This was really a chapter that took a lot of teamwork and a lot of team effort to complete it, which I really did enjoy as well, but it just made it a little bit more difficult. Alright, moving on to number 6 is the Circus Trials. This is the newer Halloween Trials in the Mimic. Now this is one where to this day I still struggle with. It is new, but I find it to be one of the hardest chapters, and the only reason I'm not putting it at the hardest chapter is just because it is newer and I haven't learned all the stuff to it. There's really only 2 difficult parts, but they're extremely difficult. The first part is has a very extreme concept to grasp onto, and the second part is very difficult as well too. They have very fast attack speed, and if they see you, you're dead unless you find cover. I also find the Magician Guy very, very difficult. It takes a lot of teamwork, and that part, not just the monster himself, but the part is extremely difficult with the cards. It's a puzzle we've never seen before in the Mimic, and nothing like it either. However, the only reason I'm not putting this at the hardest chapter is because there's only 2 parts I find to be extremely difficult. I do not find the last boss fight to be that difficult. If you know what you're doing, it takes time, but if you know what you're doing and you just don't stand in the red, it's not too difficult. Alright, coming in at my 7th, on the easiest list, this is actually a hard chapter, so we're getting into the hard chapters, but it is going to be Book 1, Chapter 4. This chapter I really struggled with at launch, and it was one of the longest ones where it took me to get the Nightmare Lantern. This one has so many complicated parts, and like, if you don't know what you're doing, you can die so easily. If you're just going into this blindly on Nightmare, then it's almost impossible. The Tokyo Toe in the first part I found were extremely difficult. However, right now I find they're extremely cool, but when I was first playing it, they were still extremely difficult because you had to look at them, rain your eyes for them not to move. It's very easy in a group, but if you're going solo, it can be difficult. You also have the Muzzler and Fozzer for the next part. You also have the Samurai, which has an insane attack speed, and then you also have the Crawling Sama. Now, after the revamp, the Crawling Sama did get a little bit easier. However, there's now a boss fight. Now, I did say at the start of the video that I wouldn't be including the boss fight, but what I meant by that is just the boss fight as an individual game mode. That's why I'm ranking Chapter 4 so high up on this list, because it's got the Tokyo Toe, the Muzzler and Fozzer, the Samurai, and the Crawling Sama, and also the boss fight at the end. However, there is still one chapter that is the most difficult out of them all, and it's the one chapter we have not covered, which is Book 2, Chapter 1. So Book 2, Chapter 1 has got the most parts in it. You got the 4 traditional parts, but on top of the 4 traditional parts, you got a chase monster in between every single one. That means after each part you complete, you also have to run away from this very fast monster. You have Rin with burning the 3 rats. And then after that you have the chase as well, and then you're on to the Snake Lady. She is also a difficult monster to get the hang of as a new player as well. You also have on the third part, you have to do the painting, you have to grab the key, there's a monster in between that as well, and then you also have the Blind Witch as well. And the Blind Witch part can be super complicated for newer players as well. And just like the old Halloween trials, if you have a bad team, that can affect your gameplay as well too, because you're going to be relying on your team to not light the wrong candles. Not only that, on the last part, if you're doing a solo, you got 3 staircases with some of the glitchiest monsters and some of the hardest AI, which can hear almost every footstep. These candles have to be lit in a set of 3 waves with 3 different monsters on each one. Not only you have to deal with these 3 complicated monsters, you also have oxygen to keep an eye on, or you permanently die. And then once you're done that, you have another chase to get to the end of Book 2, Chapter 1. Making this the hardest chapter on the list. That is it for today's video. Let me know if you guys disagreed or agreed with my list, and if you disagreed, tell me what your list is in the comment section down below. Subscribe, like, turn on those notifications, go check out our Roblox merch, link in the description, join our Discord as well, and as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.